Alright, so I already know that this video is going to stir up a lot of controversy, even though most people would probably agree with the majority of this list. Maybe not all of it, but a big portion of it. I'm just going to say now, please don't attack each other in the comment section if someone thinks a certain way. You can debate whatever, just don't get heated. don't slaughter each other down there. But before we continue on with the actual video itself, let me just make a disclaimer. So if you're waiting for the Tokyo Ghoul Re Season 2 to drop, I suggest not watching this video. Come back after that season is over, or read the manga, because this will contain spoilers from the manga of the Tokyo Ghoul Re series. And this video, if you cannot tell by the title and also the thumbnail, is going to be my top 10 list of who I believe are the strongest characters within the Tokyo Ghoul Re universe. Now, one thing I do want to say about the top 10 is that when it comes to Tokyo Ghoul, there's a huge influx of characters. There's several different characters throughout the course of the story, so do not be surprised if majority of the list here happen to be mainly ghoul characters or people who happen to be related to ghouls in some type of way. It's not that the human characters are weak or anything, it's just due to the fact that humans are kind of limited on what they're capable of doing in comparison to many of the ghoul characters in the story, especially when you add in all the unique abilities that Suishida gave ghouls after the event of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1. So there's a lot of things I had to consider when making this list, so I hope you guys agree with some of the statements here. Now, another thing that I do need to bring up is the fact that there are certain characters I'm not allowed to incorporate within this video, and 3 of them in particular. The first one that we're probably going to discuss for a brief moment happens to be Dragon Rize. She's very hard to scale, so that's just the main reason why I decided to just not put her on here, because realistically you can either put her as the number 1 spot or the number 2 spot, depending on the overall capabilities of Dragon. Or you can consider like the main body, where it's like Kaneki just kind of walked up to her and killed her. So I don't really know how to scale that. But if I did put her on this list, she would either be the number 1 spot or she'd be the number 2 spot. But I'm just not going to put her in there because I feel like it's sort of a cop-out answer. Now, another thing that I'm also not going to put in are characters who happen to either be featless or take place after the events of the 6-year time skip. So characters like Shikore are not going to be included in here because we do know that apparently him absorbing all the dragon spores made him a really big threat that CCG had to deal with, but we do not know what he's really capable of. So it's better for me just not to include him on this list. And another character that I also have to, I feel like I have to bring up why I'm not including them on this list, happens to be Hoji. Yeah, Hoji has a lot of hype behind him. Now, if you haven't read the Tokyo Ghoul Re manga around the very end of it, Takizawa makes a statement about Hoji where Hoji apparently could have easily killed him if he was going serious. Not to mention that Hoji apparently took down Tatura's brother, who happens to be stronger than Tatura, by the way, and is capable of using the fire pyrokinesis element just as well, if not better, than Tatura, and apparently slaughtered several special class investigators and associate special class investigators. So, like, realistically, Hoji might be the strongest human character in the story, either him or Suzuya. So I'm just not going to include him on this list due to the fact that we don't really know what he's fully capable of, since we only got to see him in, like, 2 fights. One of them was a one-on-one fight and the other one was a group fight where he really only kind of was a support character and then delivered the finishing blow. So I'm not going to include Hoji on this list either. Now, before we continue on to the actual video, there are a few characters that I might have to bring up and explain why they're not on this list as just simple honorable mentions, that they got pretty close, but they aren't really up there as of yet. And the 2 characters in particular, there are probably more than this, or the 3 characters I should probably mention is Suzuya, Ure, and as well as Toka. So I'm just going to knock Toka out, like, as of right now, for why she's not on this list. And the only reason why I'm bringing her up, it's not because she's, like, super strong or anything, because she's not. I honestly do believe that if I did make a top 15 list or even a top 20 list, Toka probably wouldn't be on it. And it's not due to the fact that Toka's weak or anything, it's just that the people in the top 10 are just vastly stronger than Toka is. And it's just that plain and simple. So, for the Toka fans that are going to be really pissed off that I have to say that, yeah, Toka is not as strong as the other people on this list. I honestly believe that the people who are on the top 10 of this list would probably body her relatively easily. Now, the next character, Ure is an absolute monster. Yes, he did kill a triple S rated ghoul, but one thing that you have to bring up is that Ure was not really able to do anything against Roma until the fact that, Ure framed out after she ate him. When she ate him, he busted out, and then he ripped her out from her Kakuja, which, mind you, when she's not in her Kakuja, she's a double S rated ghoul, and he dealt with her in Shikare. So, yeah, Ure is very strong, and I feel like on a top 10 list, he probably is, he's not on the top 10, but he might be in the top 15, somewhere around there in the top 15, maybe on the lower end of it, but I kind of didn't want to add him only because of the fact that we don't really know the full capabilities of how he is as a fully framed out person. But Ure is definitely very strong, and he's in the top 15. I just don't know really where. Same thing with Suzuya. Suzuya, if I didn't make this list, I'd probably say that he's either the number 11 or the number 12 spot. Suzuya is the strongest human in the story, without a doubt. I don't really think anybody can really argue against that. It's either him or Hoji, like I said before, but Hoji, there's only statements about him, and we didn't really get to see a whole lot. But Suzuya, he's really powerful. Definitely very close to making this list, but unfortunately, he didn't make the cut because of the number 10 spot on this list, who he actually did fight. Alright, so that's enough of that. This video is already going to be extremely freaking long for me having to actually explain all these top 10 people. So let's just jump right in. So the number 10 spot, I feel like, is a little bit obvious due to the way how I alluded it with Suzuya, why exactly he's not on this list, and that is Utta. So people are probably wondering either why I have Utta as number 10 on this list, either he's too low or they feel like that he's too high, but allow myself to explain. Utta, honestly, is very strong, and I earnestly believe that, not counting Faretta, he is most likely the most skilled member and probably the strongest member of the clowns. Now, people are probably wondering why exactly Donato isn't, like, the strongest member. It's not that Donato's weak, because he's not. It's just due to the fact that I feel like Utta, due to, I believe it was Donato that flat out said that Utta is like a really wild one. And you even have where several different people in the series say that Utta's strong. You see the way how he deals with Suzuya, where he pretty much plays with them. Same thing with Hirako. And you have where there's scenes where he either gets stabbed in the face or gets his face flat out, chopped off, and he's completely fine. You also have where he has his no-face, face switching ability that he's capable of doing, and it's also implied that he is capable of cloning as well, though I don't think it's to the same degree as Donato, where Donato is able to, break off pieces of his cognate or his fingers and create multiple versions of himself. I feel like with Utta, it's probably restricted to only one person or two of them. Now, Utta is very strong. We see his Kakuja is able to easily, for the most part, deal with Yomo when Yomo isn't taking the fight full-on seriously and has no bloodlust. But Utta, he's powerful, definitely the strongest member of the clowns that isn't, Faretta. Especially coming from the fact that most of the clowns members, from what we see, seem to be support. Beside, Donato, Faretta, and Roma. So, yeah. He's really strong, and that's why he's number 10 on this list. And it's not the fact that Utta's weak or anything, that he's the lowest person on this list. It's just due to the fact that the people, above him are either vastly stronger than him, or there isn't really that much of a difference in between. So, yeah. Now, number 9 on this list is Yomo. So, some people might be wondering, wow, Yomo actually made the top 10, or some people might also be wondering, I'm surprised Yomo made the top 10. So, I'm gonna be flat out honest when I say this. Yomo's really freaking strong. To the point where I feel like I was kind of downplaying him in one of the versus battles I did with him in part 1 Kaneki back on my other channel. And I might end up redoing that versus battle for a later day. Now, when it comes to the Tokyo Ghoul series, characters have to be very technical. It's not like other series like Dragon Ball or a lot of shonen, where just based off of how much you're able to kind of put out is what makes you stronger than another person. You kind of have to include the way how the character acts and stuff like that. Yomo, the reason why he's above Utta here is we flat out see it. They fight, and Yomo beats him. I don't think I really need to explain much further than that. But to explain why he's so low on the list in comparison to some people might think that he'd be like, better as number 7 or number 8, is simply because of the fact that I feel like the people who are above him are stronger than him, and I'll explain why when I get to my number 7 reason, as well as Yomo is kind of restricted to a degree due to the fact that he doesn't have a Kakuja. Now, one thing that we do need to consider, though, is I feel like we never really got to see a Yomo at full strength, unfortunately, because Yomo only fights from what I recall, like 4 times in the story. One of them is a training session with Kaneki. The other 2 times are against Arima, which it's Arima. Of course, you're going to take an L, like realistically, right? And then you also have where Yomo fights against Utta, which you can assume, one, Yomo flat out says that he's not trying to kill Utta, where Utta was going at Yomo with the full-on killer intent. And another thing you also have to consider is the fact that Yomo at this point in time could have been weakened due to the fact that all the people in the 24th Ward did not eat for a really long period of time. So Yomo might have actually been suppressed or would have been even more suppressed than what we originally thought when he was fighting Utta. Now, the main reason why how he beat Utta was kind of due to plot, which is one thing I feel like a lot of people need to consider. But there are also statements from Utta where, for the most part, when they were children, they were relatively equal. And we also do know that during the 6-year time skip, Utta and Yomo did fight each other a lot of different times. And based off of the way how Utta implies it at the final chapter, Yomo won every single time. So that's why I have him as number 10 on this list. My bad. Number 9 on this list, not number 10. So let's move on to the next person. So the next person on this list, I actually had to change it because originally I was going to have the number 7 person be the number 8, but I started thinking about it a little bit more, and I think this makes a lot more sense for number 8, and that is Kuzon. So a lot of people downplay my boy Yoshimura. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Yoshimura or anything like that. He's not like one of my favorite characters, but I do like him. There's a lot of characters in Tokyo Ghoul I kind of feel that way about, where they're not one of my favorites, but I do like them. I feel that way towards Ayato and, a few other characters within the story. But Yoshimura is an absolute monster. In part 1, he is the second strongest ghoul in the entire story. The only other person being above him is Eto, obviously, the real one-eyed owl. But Yoshimura is crazy. You have where he fights a bunch of investigators who happen to all either be special class or end up becoming special class right after this, like in the case of Suzuya and Ui. But you have where he's fighting Ui, he's fighting Suzuya, Hoji, and 2 investigators with Arata armors on, being, Shinohara and Kuroiwa, and you have, for the most part, he's actually holding them back until the very end, where his stamina starts to get out, and Hoji delivers, like, the final blow on him, which is pretty commendable, to say the least. And if I'm being completely honest, the main reason why I put Yoshimura right above, Yomo and Utta is due to the fact that the people above him can probably do the same thing, just due to the fact that they're very similar to him. Hint, hint, for the next person on this list. But another thing I do want to consider is that I don't see Yomo and Utta being able to do the same thing. Now, it is possible that maybe Utta would do a better when it comes to him doing the cloning, especially if he's able to make as many clones as Donato. But I feel like Yoshimura, especially with statements that have been stated, like by Keiko, for example, where Keiko flat out says that, yeah, you're really strong. The reason why I'm not attacking you right now is because you'd probably beat me. And even if I brought the entire V army with me, we would probably still lose. Now, the person that he's talking to here he's not even talking about like prime Yoshimura. He's talking about Yoshimura as an old ass man. So yeah, that definitely says something when it comes to Yoshimura. And I feel like due to the fact of how many artificial ghouls are made from his Kakaho and how people praise him, and even the way how we see, the owl Quinque, which is utilized by both Arima and Keiko, which is made from Yoshimura's Kakaho, not Eto's, like a lot of people for whatever reason think Yoshimura's. It kind of does show a testament to his overall strength. That Yoshimura, especially in the first fight that we see him in, when he fights against Shinohara and Kuroiwa, who are in like these upgraded prototype versions of the Arata armor, and is fighting them at the same time, and is relatively even with them. And he's not even trying to kill them, he's just trying to stall them for the other members of Ontaku to go save Kaneki, really does show that Yoshimura is a fucking monster. He's really freaking strong, and realistically, he was the leader of Ontaku. Everyone in Ontaku seems to have respect for him, including Utta, who's not even a real member. And if you look at Utta's like philosophy and mentality, he only kind of like obeys the strong, and that's the main reason why he falls behind someone like Faretta. Yeah, he's definitely stronger than both Utta and Yomo. So yeah, now let's move on to the next person on this list, the number 7 person on this list, and that is Takizawa. So to be entirely honest, when it comes from the number 6 through number 8 spots, I don't really think that there's a huge skill gap in between them, at least when it comes to them all utilizing their Kakuja. I think they're all relatively the same. We see Takizawa in several different fights. I mean, back in the beginning when he's first introduced within Ri, he's on par with Heisei Sasaki, who's using the full capabilities of his suppressed Kagune, and gets the rating of SS. Definitely really strong. You even get to see him fight Amon, and he apparently kills Hoji, who was hesitating to kill him. He took out Akira, as well as a whole entire fleet of CCG members, very similar to the way how Yoshimura had done at the very end of part 1. Takizawa was just really strong, and he's always compared to, like, you know, Kaneki back in the end of the story, and you even have where I'd say he got a lot stronger than him by the very end when he actually fights Amon for the second time. I would actually say at that point in time he's ranging more around the SS tier, and I kind of feel like that way for a lot of people on this list. For most of the people on this list are probably like bordering the SS tier, if not on it. So yeah, like it's kind of hard for me to explain why Takizawa was here without kind of spoiling the number 6 spot. So yeah, Takizawa was really strong, but I guess the reason, let me explain why when I move into the 6th person. So the number 6 person on this list is Amon. Now, I feel like a lot of people might be surprised that I have Amon above Takizawa, but allow myself to explain. So in reality, it's not the fact that Takizawa was weaker than Amon, because we do see Takizawa fight Amon and beat him both times. But one thing I do feel like a lot of people need to consider is the first time that Takizawa fights Amon, it's a very weakened version of Amon. It's not like Amon suppressed or anything like that. You have where Amon isn't really going to fight Takizawa with the intention to kill him, whereas Takizawa was doing that. Very similar to the whole Yomo Utta situation. But you also have where this is an Amon who's not capable of really utilizing his Kagune properly. You also have where this version of Amon is trying to bring Takizawa back to the light and not trying to kill him. Now, you do see that Amon in his incomplete Kakuja completely destroys the Quinks. He beats Ure, which Ure at this point in time has Ginkui, probably one of the strongest Quinkes ever. Like, if I made a top 10 list for it, it's probably number 2 or number 3 on there. Ginkui's really fucking broken. And you have where he fights Mutsuki, Psycho, Hisao, or Shao, whatever you want to call her, Ura, and also, I'm forgetting one person, Higemaru, all at the same time, and he defeats all of them. The only reason why Amon lost is he was trying to suppress himself. You have where he was going ballistic, he wasn't in a right state, or like right point in his mind, and you have where Ure throws Ginkui into him, which it just eats you alive. And I don't really know what else to say about that. Ginkui's really broken, so it makes sense that Amon would lose at that point. Now, obviously, we get to see a more complete Amon later on, who does end up fighting Takizawa, who pretty much, for the most part, is beating Takizawa throughout the entire fight. You have where Kurina and Takizawa are tag teaming him, and like, yeah, he's just kind of molly-whopping him until Takizawa goes into his Kakuja, which makes them relatively even at that point in time. Now, one thing I want you guys to consider, though, is Amon after this gets another power-up. Takizawa at this point in time only won against Amon in his Kakuja state, which is something he's not even able to control because of sheer luck, as well as his determination and outsmarting Amon at that point in time. Because Takizawa, I feel like a lot of people tend to forget that Takizawa is kind of a genius. He's really freaking smart. A lot of people underplay that when it comes to him. But Amon, he almost one-shotted Donato, bruh. Okay, I can make a separate video talking about how strong freaking Amon is. Amon's a freaking monster. Like, this dude, as a human being, as just a full-fledged human before he even becomes a ghoul, is known to be able to take out ghouls with his bare hands, bruh. And you have where he gets this freaking holy saber thing. And before he even gets that, Donato flat out says that Amon is just as good as Heise Sasuke, if not slightly better, at controlling his Kagune and his Quinque at the same time, and fusing them together. You have where he throws it at Donato, nearly one-shots him. The only reason why Donato is able to get up is, one, because Donato's really good at regen, as well as the fact that Nico was healing him the entire time. You have where, once Amon actually got the resolve to kill him, he one-shotted him. He got like this holy Jesus saber and cut this dude. Like, he didn't even cut him in half. He annihilated him. If Takizawa gets hit by that, he's done. So, yeah, if Amon had the actual will to kill Takizawa, he would definitely, like, slaughter him. Now, obviously, Takizawa would put up a really good fight. And like I said before, Takizawa is really strong. And I don't think the gap between him and Amon is, like, super big. It's just the fact that Amon's Dojima weapon is really powerful. Now, another thing I have brought up about Amon too is, based off of his encounter with Shikure, he's wearing some type of armor. Now, obviously, Amon, for the most part, we see him wearing a cloak, so it's possible that he's wearing the Arata armor under his cloak, and if he could use that, the Arata armor, which does eat at your body, but Amon's a ghoul with high advanced regeneration, yeah, that's really OP. Obviously, we didn't see that, so that's just more headcanon, but that's one thing I do feel like people should consider. So, let's move on. Now, let's move into the top 5. The top 5, I feel like for the most part, are very straightforward, and this part of the video probably won't be as long as they explain in comparison to the previous part. So, just bear with me when I explain why these people are on the top 5. And in my personal opinion, everybody in the top 5 would probably, like, annihilate everyone below them. So, let's just start with the first person on this list, and that is Keiko. So, Keiko. A lot of people downplay Keiko. A lot of people don't really think he's that strong. But I've always said that I felt like, due to the fact that Keiko was the leader of V, seemingly was the leader of V, or at least a very, important member of it, that Keiko probably is really powerful, if not one of the strongest characters in the story. Keiko was scared of Yoshimura, yes, but by the time Dragon happens, you have where he absorbs the dragon spores, he becomes a full-fledged ghoul, no longer a half-human, he has advanced regeneration, we see where he gets his head cut in half by Yusa, and is able to just regenerate from it and seemingly fine. You have where he has the Owl Quinque, which, mind you, we get to see the full capabilities of the Owl Quinque here for the first flippin' time. Which, he destroys everyone in his path. Like, I'm not even joking. You have where we see the Quink squad try to go and fight Keiko. Nope, not able to do anything. Now, one thing I do want to consider is Urei was not framed out, so maybe it would play differently if Urei was framed out, but he was just using Ginkui at that point in time. Ao just annihilates them. Yomo, Nishio, and Tsukiyama all try to jump in, not able to do anything. He's just washing everyone. And they really do showcase that, yeah, the Ao Quinque, it earns its triple S rating pretty goddamn well. It's by far the strongest Quinque in the damn series. It's really overpowered, and realistically, on a one-on-one fight, there's no way in hell that any of the people below Keiko on this list would be able to defeat him. Now, Keiko does seemingly lose to Hirako, but I always assume the reason why he lost to Hirako is because of many reasons. A, it's very well possible that Eto most likely did more damage towards Keiko than anyone else on the battlefield at that point in time, because the moment that Eto popped out, Keiko looked terrified. Now, another thing that was also happening at the same time is that Naki and the white suits did show up and turn the tide of the battle, and Keiko in his mind was just kind of like, what the hell? Why are the white suits still around? And why the hell did Faretta lie to me? So it is possible that he was off guard, but I strongly believe that he could beat anyone below him on this list, and there isn't really a whole lot more for me to go by. Now, one thing I do want to bring up, though, about Keiko that is stated, is the fact that Keiko was the one who did train Arima, as well as the fact that Keiko like the fodder members of V are just as fast as Arima, according to Kaneki. So yeah, Keiko is really strong. He's kind of underrated. I feel like a lot of people might have controversy with him being on this list, but if you just read the story, like, it's obvious that he's on this list for a fucking reason. So yeah, let's move on. Now, number 4 on this list shouldn't really be that much of a surprise. I kind of mentioned her earlier, and she's the only female character who happens to be on this list, and that is Eto, the formerly strongest ghoul in the entirety of the story. Now, I shouldn't really have to explain too much why Eto's number 4 on this list, because the 3 people above her either have all fought her in battle and have all beat her. So yeah, that's kind of just it. Like, Eto's really strong. Unfortunately, we never got to see the full-on capabilities of her in the story. She is capable of doing some, like, pretty, like, borderline life-wiping, like, Ukaku attack, because when she was controlled by Donato, she was able to release this weird, like, Ukaku beam, which took out, like, almost everyone on the goddamn battlefield if it wasn't for Mutsuki restraining her, and Suzuya also blocking a pretty big brunt of the attack. So, yeah, Eto, no one below her, especially if she was the one who did land the biggest blows on Keiko, yeah, no one else is probably beating her on this list that's below her, if we're being real. Besides maybe Keiko, but even that I think is a stretch, just due to the fact of how scared he looked when he did see her waking up. And at this point in time, this would be a realistically weakened Eto. So, yeah. Now, number 3 on this list might surprise a few people, but I do have these 2 characters above him for a reason, and that is Arima. So, Arima, we already know, has beaten Eto in the past. He was considered the strongest investigator. He's a demi-human or half-human, whatever you want to call him. He's very, very powerful. We see him fight Kaneki 2 times throughout the course of the series. Both times he's not really going full out. And I don't really know what else to say. Like, he beat Eto in a fight multiple times. One was a charade, obviously, but there was also another fight off screen that we see in a flashback. And we also know that apparently Arima, not that long after Tokyo Ghoul Jack, apparently fought Yoshimura and removed both of his arms and ripped out his kakaho. So, yeah, I mean, Arima's really strong. Like, I don't really know what else to say besides that. He's just really powerful, and the only reason why I have these 2 other characters above him is because one is just really overpowered, and the other one is a little bit more debatable. So let's just hop into that right now, and that is the number 2 person on this list, and that is Faretta. So, in my personal opinion, I think that Faretta is stronger than Arima. Now, you could argue and say, due to the fact that we didn't really get to see a full-fledged Arima, one that was at full health, that was not dying and had glaucomia in one of his eyes, and actually had, like, the intention to kill, it is possible that maybe Faretta would lose in a fight against Arima, which I'm not even going to argue. That is possible, and I can definitely see someone saying that, no, Arima should be the number 2, and Faretta should be number 3, which is fine. I honestly feel like it could go either way, but just due to the fact of how well Faretta was doing against Kaneki, where base to base, Kaneki had nothing on Faretta, and Kaneki had to go into that weird form, which we don't even know if that's a Kakuja or not, in order to defeat Faretta. And if you even look at the fight, when Faretta goes into his own Kakuja, which seemingly is a full one, which just kind of gives him like this giant bulbous cyclops eye, and he's just completely silhouetted out, and he just rages out, he was doing damage on Kaneki. Like, if you look at him, Kaneki was taking damage. He was kind of bloodied a little bit, though not that long after the fight. He did seem perfectly fine. So it is possible that it could just be Kaneki's regeneration or just an art inconsistency. I don't really know. But you see that Kaneki was getting overpowered, and the main reason why Kaneki even beat Faretta to begin with is due to the fact that Faretta thought of Riza in that one moment. In that moment of weakness, Kaneki defeated him. So Furutta's really strong. Another thing that I do want to bring up about Faretta is his overall sword skills. It's very well possible that Faretta might be the best swordsman in the entirety of Tokyo Ghoul. He's better than Kaneki. You see where he beats Kaneki several times, to the point where the only point in time Kaneki's able to kind of like stop Faretta from actually like dicing him up is literally biting onto the sword while the sword goes through both sides of his mouth on some gut stuff. That's an alpha panel. That panel is awesome. It's one of my favorite like scenes in all of Tokyo Ghoul. That's really cool. But Furuta's just really strong. I don't really know what else to say. Like, he's powerful. I think he can probably beat Arima in a fight with high difficulty, but I can also see someone saying that Furuta would lose to him. But I feel like if Kaneki is able to kind of go up against Arima at that point in time, back during the events of the Root Island arc, and beat him and outsmart him, and Kaneki even flat out admits that Furuta's smarter than him, I'm pretty sure Furuta can do the same thing to Kaneki, especially coming from the fact of how easily he was able to deal with Eto, and also the fact that Furuta is stronger than that version of Kaneki. So yeah, that's why I have Furuta as number 2 on this list. Now, number 1 on this list, shouldn't be any surprise to anyone, Kaneki. I'm not going to spend that much time talking about this, but Kaneki's just really strong. He fought Dragon Rize straight up and won. The full-on dragon version of her, now you can argue and say that was plot, but he beat her and he killed her, even though he did almost end up drowning after Naoto had to save him. He still beat her. Another thing that I do want to bring up is he fought Furuta and won. Like all the people on this list, Kaneki has fought at some point in time and beat them. Not all of them, but most of them. Furuta he beat, Arima he beat Eto, though you can say that Eto did throw the fight, obviously. He thought Almond beat him. He fought Takizawa, beat him. Like, Kaneki's not losing to anyone on this list. To be entirely honest, especially if he can go up against Dragon Rize in the way how he did. And Kaneki, seemingly by the end of the series, is able, either he has all 4 RC types, or he's able to mimic them, very similar, which is pretty impressive. He has the dragon regeneration, which is pretty crazy. And just like that, I don't really know what else to say. Like, Kaneki's just really freaking strong, and he's by far the strongest ghoul and the strongest person in the entirety of the series, not counting characters who are featless. So yeah, anyways, that's all for this video. Comment down below if you guys agree with me, and if there are people that, if you do disagree with me, tell me down below why. Hopefully in a polite fashion, because I'm very curious on your guys' thoughts. I know some people might be wondering like why I didn't put like, you know, characters like Donato or Suzuya like on the list or whatever, but I kind of stated my reasons why, and I wanted to be very thorough as possible. And it's fine if you don't agree with me, because this is my opinion, and I feel like depending on the certain circumstances, it is possible that certain people on this list could beat other people. For example, I think it is possible that Almond could lose to Takizawa depending on the circumstance, as well as I think that Arima beating Furuta could also happen depending on the circumstance as well. So there's like several different matchups. It's just like, since Tokyo Ghoul is so technical, it's very hard to scale. But this is my personal opinion, and yeah, so if you guys want me to do any other like top 10 lists like this, or probably I'm thinking like doing top 5 strongest humans in TG or something, or ranking all the Quink squad, I don't really know. But yeah, anyways, thank you for watching. Remember, comment, subscribe as always, guys. I want to hear your guys' comments down below. Let's have a discussion, and see you guys. Bye.